r/AskReddit. If COVID-19 wasn't dominating the news right now, what would be some of the biggest stories be right now? Egypt and Ethiopia are close to going to war due to Ethiopia building a dam on the Nile River. Ethiopia is diverting some water and limiting water flow to Egypt. The Ethiopian government is refusing to honor previous agreements made that detail the rate at which they will fill the lake behind their dam, and they refuse to negotiate any further with the Egyptians. Does Ethiopia have the military strength to take on Egypt? I don't know much about Ethiopian military, but Egypt gets over $1 billion a year in military aid from the USA and have the largest standing army on the continent. Edit. Wow, this got a lot of attention. To clarify, I was talking hypothetically. As some good commenters have pointed out, an actual ground conflict between the two seems unlikely, as Egypt would have to either get the permission of Sudan and Sudan to move troops through their nations, or would have to invade them as well. Thanks for all the great responses. CRISPR was just successfully injected into a live patient to treat genetically caused blindness. Source: whoa, that's awesome. The fast tracking of a silent bill through the Senate to dismantle encryption in the name of protecting the children from exploitation on the internet. While everyone is trying to stay home, healthy, and worry about the next weeks and months of their lives, they're pushing this one through during all the SARS-CoV-2 distraction. It even comes with the specious naming of the Earn It Act. They're trying to get this railroaded through quickly, before anyone has a chance to notice, and we can't roll it back. The main issue with this proposed bill is that it actually does nothing whatsoever to protect or prevent child exploitation on the internet, and dismantling encryption across a broad range of products, while threatening companies with significant fees and fines for non-compliance, is fear-mongering. The ozone layer is getting better. This is the first positive news I have read in this thread. The earthquake in Zagreb. The former king of Spain and his Swiss accounts. Wow. That is crazy. Seems like it's the perfect time to get away with whatever you want. Friend of mine works in accounting, and he said his company is planning on seeing a massive spike in fraud with all the bankruptcies expected to occur. People trying to sneak under the radar, so to speak. Not sure it's trying to sneak under the radar versus the jig being up. Like, if I embezzled $1 million and things are going well with the company, I can cover it up. The accounts have $1 million less than what management thinks, but the business keeps operating. Suddenly a crisis hits. The company needs to spend that million, and there's no way I can conceal that it isn't there. Boom. Fraud detected. This is what happened to a previous boss of mine. He wasn't letting us write off uncollectible invoices, usually duplicate invoices, so it looked like a lot of money was owed to us. Then a downturn hit and the board wanted to borrow against the large accounts receivable balance, but couldn't because the bank did an audit which showed those invoices are all uncollectible. I had to quit the job because he kept trying to get me, the accountant, to say those invoices were collectible, but I simply wouldn't, because I knew they weren't. If I'd have known why he wanted me to lie, I would have gone above him, but I thought he was just an idiot. And the fact that through those accounts he received 100 mrr from Saudi Arabia, and that he's being sued in the UK for threatening his ex-lover, all the while Spanish courts refused to open an investigation. Don't you mean Spanish courts refused to open an inquisition? The one time a Spanish inquisition was expected, and they didn't come through. The nearly 2-year-long Ebola outbreak in the DRC has ended. The last patient to be treated has survived. Wow. I was worried about this a couple of months ago, but then the pandemic that must not be named took over my attention and I forgot about it. Incredibly brave people fighting Ebola. Such a scary disease. Yeah, the people that get out there to treat patients are some of the world's biggest heroes. I can't imagine how scary it must be to be living in a place with an Ebola outbreak going on. Thank God it's all over now. That was the last bit of positive news I got before all this started happening. Earn It bill. It seeks to end encryption in the USA. It would be a huge hit to online free speech. If the bill only ends encryption in the USA, how does it work when Americans interact with encrypted sites registered to other parts of the world? Because they can't technically ban encryption, they could probably force App Store owners, Google, Apple, to not allow apps that use it, but they cannot ban the technology. Thanks for replying, mate, but how can they force companies to stop using it, but not ban the technology? Genuinely trying to understand how this would work. An example mentioned is that the government will no longer grant Section 230 protections to companies using end-to-end encryptions in the US. The Loran Varro / Chad Daybell case is still alive and well. If anyone's interested in this, I wrote a longest comment for r/out off the loop when it was first breaking. That should take you up to about mid-February. This is one of those stories that's going to get bigger as more details come out. As with any story like this, there's a veritable smorgasbord of information, misinformation, speculation and finger pointing. But, well, it's not looking good. It's still in progress, but if you're expecting a happy ending, this probably isn't the story for you. What we do know is that two children, 17-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old Joshua JJ Varro, haven't been seen since September 2019. Tylee is the child of Loran Varro and her third husband, Joseph Ryan. JJ was adopted by Loran and her fourth husband, Charles Varro, at a young age. JJ Varro is the grandson of Charles Varro's sister, Kay Woodcock. Charles Varro is JJ's adoptive father, but also his great-uncle. The family trees on this one are complex. By all accounts, the marriage was a relatively happy one until a couple of years ago, when, according to Charles Varro's brother-in-law, Larry Woodcock, suspicions arose that Loran was having an affair with a man named Chad Daybell. Daybell is a Latter-day Saints author of religious-themed books, including dozens of books on apocalyptic events and near-death experiences. By all accounts, Loran became increasingly fixated on religion during this time, becoming obsessed with the idea that there would be a second coming in July 2020, and that she was going to be one of a special 144,000, the latter of which is in line with LDS teachings, that there will be a group of high priests raised to spread the gospel at the end times. According to court documents, Charles noted that Loran claimed to be a translated being who cannot taste death sent by God to lead the 144,000 into the millennium. This led to suspicions that Loran was in a cult. Loran Varro and Chad Daybell worked on a podcast for which the production company, Preparing a People, has released a statement clarifying that they are not, in fact, a cult, merely a religious materials production company. That said, they also included the line, "We formally are notifying all media and individuals to cease and desist from mentioning the Preparing a People event brand or our media company in any negative connection with Chad or Loran Daybell or their case." So to reiterate, that's the Preparing a People event brand, the alleged cult and definitely employers of Loran Varro and Chad Daybell, who are wanted in connection with the disappearance of 2 children and potentially the murder of 3 other people. You can't just threaten strangers to keep your dirty laundry secret, you guys. That's not how the internet works. In February 2019, Charles Varro sought a divorce from his wife, as well as a protection order after she, allegedly, according to his sister, threatened him with violence if he got in her way. Charles Varro was shot and killed by Loran Varro's brother, Alex Cox, in July of 2019. Before that, Varro had switched the beneficiary of a $1 million life insurance policy from Loran to his sister Kay, JJ''s grandmother. According to Varro's former lawyer, Stephen Ellsworth, Charles had warned him about a perceived danger to his life. Ellsworth reported Charles as saying, "I'm afraid I'm gonna be killed, and I know who's gonna do it. I'm telling you, Steve, so that if something happens to me, I wanna make sure you let everyone know that something happens, I'm killed, that it's my wife Loran and her brother, Alex Cox." Cox claimed that it was a case of self-defense after Varro attacked him, but the case was never conclusively settled. Shortly after Varro's death, Loran removed JJ from a school that specialized in the care of autistic children, claiming that she had found a new job in California and would be moving JJ there. So far, all of this has taken place in Arizona. Rather than moving to California, Loran moves the kids to Rexburg, Idaho in August, where Chad Daybell is located, and, it's worth noting, a town that's estimated to be 95% Mormon, and enrolls JJ and Tylee into school. That's pretty much the last time they are seen. Now, while this is going on, Chad Daybell is married to his wife, Tammy, with whom he's been together since 1990, and founded a religious materials publishing company which put out his writings. In October 2019, Tammy Daybell claimed that a masked man shot at her with a paintball gun. As she put it, "I had gotten home and parked in our front driveway. As I was getting stuff out of the back seat, a guy wearing a ski mask was suddenly standing by the back of my car with a paintball gun. He shot at me several times, although I don't think it was loaded. I yelled for Chad and he ran off around the back of my house." 10 days after this, Tammy Daybell died of what was assumed to be natural causes. She was buried shortly afterwards, without an autopsy. The police did attend the scene, but apparently didn't find anything unusual. Per Fremont County Sheriff Lynn Humphreys, "My deputies responded, and, as we do with most unattended deaths, they took pictures. They looked it over, and contacted our detectives. The detectives had a few questions, they satisfied those, got the information they needed, and didn't see anything that alarmed them." To my knowledge, Daybell was responding like anybody would whose spouse had just passed away. That's why the deputies didn't suspect anything suspicious. Shortly after this, within weeks, Loran Varro and Chad Daybell get married in Kauai, Hawaii. The kids are nowhere to be seen. Tylee allegedly sent a text to a friend on October 25th, but that's the last of any sort of contact, and even that isn't necessarily accurate. The Daybells were subject to a welfare check on JJ in November, after family members complained they hadn't seen or heard from him in months. But when the police arrived, the Daybells claimed that JJ was with relatives in Arizona. When they checked up on the story, they found he hadn't stayed with the people the Daybells claimed. When this information comes in, police go to have a talk with the Daybells, and they've vanished. This takes us to November 27th, 2019. Convinced that there's something suspicious going on, police start to take a closer look at Tammy Daybell's death, and her body is exhumed on December 11th, so that toxicology tests can be performed. The results are still pending. On December 12th, Alex Cox, Laura's brother, and the man who killed Charles Vallow, was found dead in a house in Arizona belonging to a woman he had married in Vegas 2 weeks earlier. The cause of death is unknown, and, again, toxicology reports are still pending. And that's mostly where the story sits right now. The Daybells turned up in Hawaii and are refusing to answer questions, and there have been numerous appeals from the Woodcocks asking for information about the kids. The Woodcocks filed for guardianship, which is still pending. Lori Daybell was delivered papers informing her that she was legally required to produce JJ and Tylee to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare or Exburg Police Department in 5 days, a deadline which passed on January 30th. Police in Hawaii have been investigating the Daybells, but at the time of writing no arrests have been made. The reason this is getting national attention now is because of a Dataline special entitled Where Are the Children, which aired on February 14th. Given the Daybells' continued refusal, or inability, to produce Tylee and JJ, you can expect there to be developments on this story in the coming days. This isn't one that's likely to just go away. Loran Varro was arrested in Hawaii on February 20th on 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children, resisting or obstructing officers, criminal solicitation to commit a crime and contempt of court. Chad Daybell was not arrested. One of the main routes into downtown Seattle, the West Seattle Bridge, was closed yesterday because cracks in support beams made it structurally unsound. It will take several months to fix and will not reopen until it's done. This would normally destroy the entire Seattle commute, but it happened right now, so it's barely even a blip on the local news. Real talk, this was probably the best possible time for this to happen. Real talk, they likely knew about this for a long time and were waiting to find a time to close it. My new favorite conspiracy theory is that COVID-19 was created by the Municipal Transportation Authority in Seattle. Astronomer here. We might have a bright naked eye comet next month in the northern hemisphere, our first since 1997. Comet C/2019 Atlas Y4 is brightening really quickly, and by May, might be one of the brightest things in the night sky. I mean, comets are notoriously tricky to predict in brightness, as it might just break apart as it gets closer to the sun. but it's really exciting to think about, albeit no one has heard about it because of the pandemic. Though granted, doesn't a pandemic need a bright comet? Edit. You might be able to get it in binoculars right now, or at least have fun trying. Here is a star chart for it. And yes, the last bright northern hemisphere great comet was Hale-Bopp, which was up for about a year to the naked eye. If you were a southern hemisphere resident in 2006, however, you probably remember Comet McNaught. Edit 2, because many are asking, that bright star in the evening sky is actually Venus. It's around its peak brightness and height right now, and you should go take a look, if your social distancing allows it. Might as well take a break from Netflix, and look at a whole nother planet. Close bracket. Edit 3, no, there is no chance of the comet hitting us, or affecting life on Earth beyond potentially getting bright. I would hope the locusts plaguing East Africa, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. It's describing some swarms as being the size of New York, and they are eating their harvest, threatening widespread famine. I think without coronavirus we would mobilize to try to control this population the way we did for Zika carrying mosquitoes in the Americas. Edit. This NPR article describes how in 2018 an unfortunate series of cyclones from the Indian Ocean hit an extremely remote area of the Arabian Peninsula known as the Empty Quarter. This produced extraordinary rain, and gave them what they needed to breed. Because a second cyclone hit occurred during their breeding cycle, instead of drying out, and having most of their population die out in the desert, the population exploded. In favorable conditions they can multiply by 400x their population every 6 months. Then they mass migrated. Also for clarity, a swarm was identified as 3 times the size of New York City. Probably the oil price war actually. Saudi Arabia is trying to force the Russians into cutting production, since they won't play ball with OPEC+, and US shale might pay the prices we need high cost for this entire industry to function. I work in the oil industry. This is huge right now. It's honestly just about the same as the coronavirus for us. Powers getting cuts, people losing their jobs, etc. All due to oil price and not coronavirus. US shale is paying the price. Even without the virus, it would kill our economy. Yes, it did start before coronavirus, but the impact happened at the same time. The reason oil price cratered was because OPEC+ had an emergency meeting after demand fell in China due to the virus. At the meeting, Putin and MBS had a dick measuring contest, and now they're both losing money producing as much as they can to fuck with each other. This can't last forever, but might last long enough for US shale, Canadian tar sands, and other worldwide producers to go bankrupt. This is amazing for China though, going to boost their recovery. ISIS bombs Sikh place of worship in Afghanistan. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Afghan officials say 25 were killed, and 8 more are wounded in an attack on the Sikh temple in the nation's capital. It appears multiple gunmen stormed the temple complex, while there were approximately 150 people inside. A Sikh who took cover says the militants went room to room, shooting and throwing hand grenades. The Islamic State organization has claimed responsibility. Fucking assholes are at it again. Did they ever stop? Or did the media just stop covering it? That Putin changed his country's constitution, so he can be president until 2036. I think we've all known for a while, that dude's going to leave power in a casket, and not a moment sooner. I mean, he could go the North Korea route, having him as supreme leader forever, and the person running the country just be like the prime minister. Andrew Gillum, married with kids, almost became governor of Florida, was found naked, high on meth and drunk in a hotel with an overdosing male escort. Hey, nobody can say he doesn't embody Florida though. Thank you for watching Reddit for your ears. If you want more Reddit content for your ear holes, subscribe and hit that notification bell.